What does Ruben need from our recruitment department to get us back into the top 6 or better next season? That the average points needed to get to the top 6 from the last 5 years is at least 66 points. If we can get to 71 points, we have a chance at top 4. He has an extremely high work rate. Mbuemo made over 1,000 off-the-ball runs, which is nearly 100 more runs than any other Premier League player. In this instance, the goalkeeper just kicks it away long, which isn't a bad option against these types of pressing teams. Just like I said before, this is the reason why the long ball is becoming more prevalent with these aggressive presses. Now, my extensive football knowledge and my keen eye for the minor details had led me to believe that our 2 main goalkeepers are pure shit. What's up, YouTube? Thank you for joining me once again. Thank you for clicking on my thumbnail. And for my usual viewers, you guys know who you are and I know who you are too. Hit the like button, man, and get that trend started for me. And thank you. I appreciate all the support you guys have given me. For the new guys, if you're new to the channel, sit back, relax. Don't hit the like. You don't even know me yet. If you like what I have to say, if you like the video, consider subscribing and then hit the like button if you will. The thing I want to talk about the most, the thing I want to focus on, because there's going to be a lot of things we talk about, is football data, like analytics, stats. The recruitment world has changed so much since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. Football, just like all other sports, has become a lot more data-driven. Technical directors and data analysts have taken over recruitment instead of leaving it up to the manager to decide who we bring in. It seems to me that we are one of the last big teams to finally adopt that trend, and yet we still don't really have a great data department from what I hear, because Sir Jim Ratcliffe himself said that in an interview with United We Stand magazine literally not too long ago. Keep that in mind, not the Sir Jim Ratcliffe part, but the data part, because that's going to be a big part of our discussion today. Another aspect of the game that has changed a lot since Sir Alex Ferguson's days is the way the way teams are playing football. Like, a lot of people are calling this the modern football, the age of the press. A lot of small and big teams are pressing a lot more often, and the art of pressing itself is also evolving. I'm going to need you to pay attention for a bit, because as I go along with my thoughts, I'm going to weave multiple threads, which at first glance might confuse you, but they will come together as I go along, and you'll better understand how they relate to each other and my point of view. Over the last 2 or 3 years, we're seeing more teams implementing a very aggressive man-to-man pressing style, which only a handful of years ago would have been considered highly risky. Because people thought that if you get past one of your pressers, then the whole press is beat and the whole shape is destroyed. But that belief didn't really turn out to be completely true, at least for most teams except for Spurs, who kept giving away goals last season every time their press was broken. F you, Spurs. Most teams would implement the man-to-man press in their own unique ways to try and force teams to move the ball into an area or to a player they wanted to go to, so that then they can apply even more pressure to win the ball back. I'm going to show you examples of this a little later in this video, but try to stay with me, as right now I want to keep talking about how data relates to what I'm trying to say, because I know you've already know most of this stuff. If you've been with me for a long time, you know that I do make tactical videos where I explain what a team is trying to do and whether or not players are doing a good job or not at doing what needs to be done in whatever system they're playing in. I've made over 100 videos so far on YouTube, I think, and at least 30 of them are involving tactics or some sort of player review or breakdown of a system. And I have only used statistics and data analytics 3 times to back up my case. It's not because I don't believe in data analytics. I use a lot of data in my daily coaching job. The reason I don't use a lot of data here when I'm making football videos is because I don't believe that FBref or SofaScore or DataMB or any other publicly available site has any real high-end data that serious recruitment teams and data analytics specialists are using to evaluate players. These sites, the things that we have access to, is the most basic and honestly almost useless data. And I know everybody has heard this one before, but it's true that if you take pass completion percentage, for example, a player can pass backwards and sideways all day, and he would have 100% pass completion rate. Of course, you can also look at his progressive passing stats and make up your mind or find out a little bit about how many of those passes were actually progressive. But What if he makes a lot of progressive passes every time he plays against a team with a low block instead of a high press? Say in like a league like Spain or Italy where low blocks are used a little more often than the Premier League. Then he'll have a high pass completion percentage on a high progressive passing stat. So unless you know exactly the circumstances in which actions are being taken, the data isn't actually of much use. In modern football, there are specific like pass-related analytics that we're just not privy to. Teams guard their data like as if it was more valuable than gold, and it just might be. They spend a lot of money on research and software to help them gather this type of data. Look, with AI-driven software, you can quite literally like upload games into the software and have it track the players and break down exactly what each player is doing on the field and how they're performing in different types of situations. Statistics like receiving passes under pressure, pressure regains, which, by the way, doesn't like you hear pressure regains and you think it's when a player makes a successful tackle when applying pressure or pressing, but it's not. Pressure regains actually refers to a player's team regaining possession within 5 seconds of when that player applies pressure or starts to press or presses. This wouldn't be an easy stat to track unless you had AI-driven software doing the job for you. Like, can you imagine a human being watching a game to track that stat, having to remember who started applying pressure up to 5 seconds before possession turned over? There would be errors like frequently, which means the data would be useless. By the way, the top 2 players of those stats in the Premier League, and don't quote me on this because like I read this over a month ago when I was starting to do my research for this, but the top 2 players for pressure regains were Rodri and Bruno Gyökeres, which makes a lot of sense. I wish we, like me and you, had access to that kind of data analytics because it's like awesome to know those stats. Those stats are a lot more useful than the ones we have on FBref and Data MB and stuff like that. But it's just worth too much money to give away for free online. That data has become like a weapon, almost as good as oil money to build successful squads. You City. I've heard and read many people saying we need to get rid of Ruben Amorim. He's too stubborn with his methods and his tactics, that style-based or tactics-based managers are killing the beautiful game and taking away player freedom and like freedom of thought. That Manchester United wasn't successful in the past because of our style or play and that we should go back to our roots. Even though I would argue that that's not exactly true about Manchester United's past, I do get why people say that, but I would argue that in the old days, managers would come in and learn about their players and try to bring out their best in their strengths or whatever. The most Amorim outers are saying things like, Amorim doesn't get the best out of his team. Amorim doesn't use his squad in the way they would best be served, if you will. Instead of saying things like, the squad's not getting the best out of Amorim's tactics. The player's not doing the best out of what the space that Amorim's tactics is opening up for that player, if you will. But never mind that. Let's talk about the traditional method, the one that people would like to go back to, the one that say is killing our beautiful game. Successful, traditionally minded managers like Carlo Ancelotti and Zinedine Zidane, sure, they don't have a strict system. But what we've learned from that philosophy or way of building a team is that more often than not, the richest teams win and the poorest teams lose. With a rare exception of like a storybook season when maybe a smaller team manages to win more games than like was ever expected of them. But that was like a very rare occurrence, lightning in a bottle type stuff, okay? Nowadays, in what we're calling modern day football, almost all Premier League teams are rich, guys. They don't need to sell. Everton wouldn't budge on Jared Branthwaite's price just last summer. They didn't need the money that badly. So if we wanted to win the Premier League by doing it the traditional way, we would have to build one of the best teams in the league, and it would cost our team a hell of a lot of money that we just don't have to compete with the likes of Man City and Chelsea in the market. It would cost us a whole lot of money just to catch up with what Arsenal and Liverpool have already built over the years with good recruitment of players who fit their system or tactic of choice. Other teams without big budgets have shown that they can perform much better than expected with a clear playing style and recruitment of players who actually fit that style rather than recruiting a mixture of like really, really good players and then hiring a manager to figure out how to make them all play better together. Look, I think that's what made the Ed Woodward years so worthless. He was willing to spend big on big name players and good players, but they didn't fit together in a cohesive team that can perform at a high enough level to win any major trophies, guys. Barada and Wilcox are from the school of working with a system manager and building a squad for that system. That doesn't mean what some of the disgruntled fans who claim it means. Like they get in my comments and they say things to me like, wouldn't recruiting for Amorim be just as bad if we end up sacking him and hiring someone else? Won't those players be worthless to the next manager? Won't we have to spend big again and rebuild all over again? No, it wouldn't. As if Liverpool, Brighton, and many others who have replaced their managers, system managers, by the way, and brought in another manager who plays like a similar system, or at least like similar enough to where the players would still suit the new manager. Like that happens all the time. So that argument doesn't really hold any water. So please don't leave anything in my comments that is talking about how recruiting for Amorim is going to hurt us in the future. Let's just move on. More importantly, you should be asking yourself, why did they choose Ruben Amorim? That's the real question. And I promise I'm going to tie all this together. Everything I'm saying is all going to tie together. Why did they choose Ruben Amorim? The usual and relevant answer is that he won the Portuguese league with Sporting, who hadn't won in a long time, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. That's the easy answer, guys, but that's not diving in deep enough into how he won the league. And what about his style is probably what stands out the most to Wilcox, who I'm guessing was the man who chose him. Okay. And the data, probably. There's a reason why Liverpool, who are very data driven, and I would argue probably have the best data software and data built team in the league. There's a reason why their data driven minds considered Amorim to replace Klopp, but went with Slot because of a financial decision. Not the data department, the financial department decided it would cost too much to build a squad to fit Amorim's style because they would have to rebuild. They went with Slot because he has a similar style and could work with the same kind of players that Klopp did. In our case, I believe Wilcox knew, or at least had a feeling that a major rebuild was needed either way, so maybe let's just get the right manager first. I got a little off track and I'm trying to get all my thoughts out, but now let's get back to what makes him the right manager, which means we're going to go back to where we started. Pressing. Pressing has become a much more aggressive tactic in the last 2 or 3 years. I'm going to tie it all together, so I hope you've been following me so far. Teams used to press with 2 players pressuring the back line and trying to force the other team to get the ball into spaces where they can set up these traps. This was the way for over a decade, and the teams in possession had to adapt and start playing out from the back with synchronized movements into space that would allow them to pass in and out of pressure and move the ball up the field. Presses were failing more often about 4 years ago than they were 10 years ago because managers and players adapted and centers and goalkeepers got better on the ball. With more and more teams being able to break the press or escape the 2 or 3 man press, pressing teams began to evolve and started taking more risks, either adopting more of a very narrow shape with an extremely high line with more than 2 players up front, or by pressing in a straight man-to-man fashion, very much like a Ralph Rangnick system with some differences, and I don't have the time in this video to go through all of that. But because pressing like this was becoming more adapted by more Premier League teams in the last 2 years, this aggressive tactic has resulted in the return of the long ball. It's not by coincidence that the long ball has become a lot more prevalent, and as our manager said in a very recent interview, the second and third balls have become a very important part of the game, especially in the Premier League. So then why did Wilcox and Barada choose Ruben Amorim? His style or tactic to deal with pressure and the press in particular is very interesting, guys. A mixture of penetrating passes into players who are playing in the pocket to either hold it up there or have a one-touch pass to one of the wingbacks who are flying up the sides, or Sporting used to play 1-2 passes out wide to get up the field using zigzagging diagonal runs, or long balls hit into wide open spaces in the corners of the field where a speedy forward can easily win a foot race against bigger, slower defenders. These kind of tactics are not like completely out of the ordinary, but he uses them so effectively in the team shape that he uses. That's why I think they chose him. That his tactics, his style, and his team shape just needs some competent players to basically have a very, very high chance of breaking a press and getting us in the opponent's side of the field and setting us up, setting some diamonds and triangles and getting us to score a goal, of which I've talked about plenty of times how he does that and what his tactics do. I'm not going to talk about that in this video. If you're new to the channel, if you haven't seen this video, check out that video right there. At the end of this video, I'm going to put a link to that again, so you'll have a chance to click on it. But let's keep going with what I'm talking about here. So now that we've understand a little bit better why they may have chosen Ruben Amorim, it's not just because he won the Portuguese league. It's tactics driven. I believe it's data driven why they chose him and what they see and what he can do with competent players. They don't have to be the greatest of players. They just have to be good at these things that are easier to find than finding highly technically gifted players all over your pitch. So now that we finally arrived there, we also finally arrived at the main subject of this video. The title and the thumbnail. What does Ruben need from our recruitment department to get us back into the top 6 or better next season? Look, last season we finished 15th on 42 points. Absolutely disgraceful. If we're aiming for a top 6 finish next season, then we need to consider that the average points needed to get to the top 6 from the last 5 years is at least 66 points. If we can get to 71 points, we have a chance at top 4. So we are about 25 points away from top 6 and 30 points away from having a chance at the top 4. That's a lot of points, so there's a lot of work to be done this summer. You win and lose points based on wins, draws, and losses. And the most important or simple stats that you can look at that directly affect wins, draws, and losses are goals scored, goals conceded, and number of clean sheets. Our biggest weakness is goals scored. We finished on 44 goals. That's 20 goals less than the least scoring top 4 team. We need to add 20 goals to our team this summer. This is why we've been hearing a lot of rumors and news about forwards we're interested in. It's clear that the recruitment department is trying to get in at least 2 forwards, hopefully with goal-scoring abilities. But is it enough to just look at a player's ability to score goals and identify or brand them as a player that's going to help us move forward? No, it's not. Like I've already said, we need players who are going to fit the system. What Ruben's system needs from his forwards are players who are comfortable playing in that pocket between the opponents, between like the midfield line and back line. Xerxes does this really well. He receives the ball under pressure and uses his body perfectly to shove the defender back away from the ball, which buys him space to make the pass. This is a skill that Rasmus is just very, very bad at. And in my opinion, this skill is the reason why Rasmus has had such a bad season all season. Imagine what your confidence is going to do and how much it's going to get crushed when you keep failing time and time again at the thing you're being asked to do 20 times a game. He doesn't know how to use his body in these type of situations, and Amorim's system calls for this exact situation so many times a game. Even Mason Mount is much better than this than Rasmus. This skill or ability is one of the reasons Amorim has been calling out for the need for more physical players in the squad. Look, we know we've already signed or are about to sign Matheus Cunha, and he would be a great addition to the team. Although, like I said before, we don't have the clear stats that I want to look at to find out exactly in how many ways that Cunha can help us. But I did find, after digging online, that Cunha has a ball retention. Let me say this the right way. Ball retention when receiving passes under pressure percentage of 81%, which ranks him 6th in the Premier League. Please understand what stat I'm referring to. It's not just ball retention. It's ball retention under pressure when receiving a pass. It's one of those specialized stats that's very hard to find. So it's not just Cunha's goal scoring we're going after. I believe we are finally recruiting using data. This high retention rate under pressure highlights his composure, his spatial awareness, like his technical skill. which makes him such a reliable option in like tight situations. Someone we can count on being effective in breaking through opposition presses. Cunha's dribbling stats also emphasize his proficiency under pressure. Not to mention that in Amorim's sporting team, most of the attackers could run with the ball at a very proficient rate. So this is going to fit perfectly. Cunha has about 4 dribbles per 90, which brings him to the 94th percentile in the league. And his dribble success rate is at almost 50%, which is really, really good. But his combined XG and XA isn't exactly mind-blowing. He ranks 21st in the Premier League for those combined stats. So to sum it up, he's perfect to help us get out of the pressure situations. He's going to keep defenders busy, which will open up space for our other players, and he will be scoring some goals for us, but we will still need to recruit a prolific goal scorer, in my opinion. That brings me to Bryan Mbuemo. I don't know if we have a chance to get this man, but I think we do, because from what I've read online just today, Ben Jacobs has been saying that Newcastle's Champions League isn't the reason why he's going to choose to go there. That Manchester United does have a clear chance as he's intrigued with how big our club is, and I told you that our brand is still relevant. He's intrigued with the project, he's intrigued with how big our club is, and he wouldn't mind putting on a Manchester United kit if we make him the right offer. I really think we have a real chance of getting him, and I want to talk a little bit about this guy. His XG over performance stat is the highest in the league, which means he makes the most of his chances. He is a clinical finisher, but that's not even the best part of his game. He has an extremely high work rate. Mbuemo made over 1,000 off-the-ball runs, which is nearly 100 more runs than any other Premier League player. With Cunha occupying defenders, we will need someone who is relentlessly running, and that's what Mbuemo does. He covered 387 kilometers over the season, ranking 3rd in the league, which means he has stamina and commitment to both offensive and defensive duties. Also, with a sprint frequency of 870 total sprints and 389 off-the-ball runs at sprinting speed, he's got pace and urgency, which are essential qualities for effective pressing. He would be adding goals and physicality, and he would make our pressing better. We should really be trying to get this guy. And I think we will. I don't think we're going to let Newcastle beat him to us or beat us to him. Yes, they have Champions League, but like I said, Ben Jacobs already made it clear that Mbuemo is intrigued by playing for Manchester United, and Champions League isn't exactly the highest thing on his list. He probably believes that we can get back into Champions League with players like him and Cunha and whatever forward that we've probably told him we're going to try to sign, because there's no way that we're not sitting with these people and they don't want to know like what our project is. And Ben Jacobs clearly said he's intrigued by the Manchester United project, which means someone sat down with this man or his agent and let them know, here are our summer plans and we'd like you to be a part of it. Now I'm excited about the project, if that's the reason why he's choosing to come to us. But by the way, with all that said, I hate to say it, but all the research I've been doing has made it clear to me that Newcastle have a pretty great data analytics department. It's probably something they've built over the last 3 years. Something I'm glad we're starting to build, because it's starting to look to me that we're using data to like pinpoint who our targets are. Look, if we don't get Mbuemo, which I think we will, but if we don't, we need to find another attack-minded midfielder who has a high combined XG and XA stats and can play under pressure in the pockets. Now we have to look at the striker position, because for me, that's the single most important position for us to upgrade this summer, and I'm not hearing too many things, and it's kind of scary. Look, we seem to have like prioritized a now failed move for Liam Delap, and I'm not really quite sure why. Like I've said, we don't have access to a lot of important pieces of data, and I'm sure that they have data that shows he would have been a good fit. But for me, I mean, he's definitely a good striker for his age, but in a Manchester United team of the past, he would be more of a Chicharito signing and not like the main striker for the team. I was always of the opinion that we would go and get Viktor Gyökeres in the summer. It's like a no-brainer. When's the last time Manchester United had a real chance of getting one of the deadliest goal scorers in Europe in his prime? It's been a long time. We have who I'm sure is his favorite manager that he's ever played for. Come on, he's got to be. We don't have Champions League, but we do pay good wages. Give him close to what we're paying Casemiro, in wages, and I'm sure he's going to have to consider coming. I'm not sure who we're going to end up getting, but we do need to get someone who can bring down a long ball and win the second or third balls high up the pitch. He can hold up the ball. He needs to have speed to win the foot race for balls hitting those long, wide spaces. And he needs to have positional awareness and be a prolific goal scorer. How the hell are we going to get one of those if it's not Gyokeres or Osimhen? And by the way, I do think Osimhen is probably the better option. I only fear like his injury record a little bit because we have the worst luck when it comes to players' injuries. But Osimhen is the better in the air option and more useful against the low block, which is our other biggest problem. We're not great against the aggressive press, and we can't find any ways to score against the low block, as demonstrated in our most recent friendly against the Asian All-Stars, who beat us, by the way. Right now, I want to talk about the next thing I consider to be our next priority, which is our backline and goalkeeper. We only had 9 clean sheets in the season, and we allowed 54 goals against us. The goalkeeper and the backline definitely need looking at and improvement, and I'm only going to take a second and talk about the goalkeeper just by saying that my extensive football knowledge and like my keen eye for the minor details had led me to believe that our 2 main goalkeepers are pure shit. They suck. They are really bad. Like, I want to vomit every time I see either one of them play for my team. We need a new one, and he doesn't even have to be great. I'll take anyone who can make a save and kick a ball. I actually like that Joan Garcia, I don't know how to say his name, because that guy has made more saves than any other goalkeeper in Europe. But really, I'll take anyone who has safe hands and a pulse. And honestly, enough about the goalkeeper. Enios, just please, I beg you, just get us one. Get us someone new. Let's not see Bayendir and Onana starting for us next season. With that out of the way, let's talk about the back line. I have had issue with Mazraoui and Delo, and people don't seem to understand why. They keep telling me how great Mazraoui is technically and everything else. And I do understand that because we used to have Lindelof starting, so I can see how people believe Mazraoui's this great player. He is a better player than what we had, but he's not that great, and neither is Delo for this system, and I'm going to show you why. Look, this is what I see when I think Mazraoui and Diego Delo need upgrading, in my opinion. When we play against the aggressive pressing teams like Newcastle, I just feel like they steer the ball in their direction. They want the ball to go to Mazraoui or Delo, and then they trap them. Check out this footage. You clearly see the man-to-man press, but if you look closely, you'll see the Newcastle player who's supposed to be pressing Mazraoui is allowing him space because they want the ball to circulate to Mazraoui. They want the ball on that side of our team. In this instance, the goalkeeper just kicks it away long, which isn't a bad option against these types of pressing teams. Just like I said before, this is the reason why the long ball is becoming more prevalent with these aggressive presses. Here's another example of Newcastle pressing us, and notice how all their players are sprinting into positions except for the one assigned to Mazraoui. It's obvious they have identified him as our weak link along with Delo, as they are both playing on that side. This is not the first time I've noticed this pattern, guys. When Lissandro was healthy, pressing teams feared his long pass. With Lenny Yoro, we are starting to see that he has a pass on him too, and he can carry the ball. He doesn't make too many mistakes under pressure. As for Delo, don't get me wrong, great guy, hard worker, but doesn't have the attributes for a wingback in a Ruben Amorim team. His crossing is not the greatest. His running patterns aren't the best. He's way more defensive-minded than attack-minded, and he's not that great under pressure. He would be such a good fullback in La Liga or the Serie A. And we are starting to hear that there are rumors that we're looking at some wingbacks. I'm so glad to hear this. We're looking at Estupinan, whatever his name is, from Brighton. I think his name is Estupinan, who I really like. That would be my first choice. But just in case we're tight on money, we're also looking at a free transfer of Nelson Semedo, whose contract is up, I think, this summer. That's what I read, at least. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. I only read it once. But Nelson Semedo's on a free transfer, and we might be looking at bringing him on a free. Both of those guys would be better options. Obviously, Nelson would play on the right. Estupinan would probably play on the left, which would move Dorgu to the right. Either way, it would be an upgrade, and our right side would be solved. And then I would just be looking at if we're going to be bringing in another center back so that Mazraoui doesn't have to play in the center anymore. We can move Yoro back to the right side, Lissandro, hopefully healthy, will play on the left, or Aiden Heaven. And then, we have options there. Hopefully, Mazraoui won't have to play anymore. We'll see. Guys, that's it for this video. This has been already a long one, and I put in a lot of work for this. I hope you enjoyed it. I am going to make another video at some point about the midfielders, like I said. I don't know if it'll be the next one. It all depends on what kind of news comes out tomorrow, and I might start making the more relevant videos about current affairs instead of bigger, thought-out videos like this one. Let me know in the comments if you like this type of video. Let me know if I should be making these type of videos or go back to just talking about current events like I did in my past videos. Guys, if you're new to the channel and you're still here, even if you're not new to the channel, if you're still here, hit the like button if you haven't, because obviously you enjoyed some of this video. You enjoyed something to stick around this long. And if you are new, consider hitting the describe. Yeah, consider hitting the describe, like he said. Jesus, I was really tired, man. Sorry about that. It's consider hitting to subscribe if you're new. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit it. Guys, I recorded that video yesterday, and I just got done editing it, and I realized I missed a couple of things. Number one, I forgot to talk about the Rashford Barcelona deal, which I have a lot to say about. Don't really have time to say it right now, and I don't want to keep you guys any more than the 35 minutes you've already spent watching this video. But I did want to tell you that I want to make a live. I want to do a live, and that's what I forgot to talk about. I want to do a live on Wednesday, and if you guys have stayed this long, you're watching the end of my video, then I'm sure you guys are people who actually enjoy my stuff. So I'm telling you, show up on Wednesday. I'm going to do a live. It's going to be 9 a.m. California time, maybe 9:30 a.m. California time. I'll post the thumbnail by Sunday night so that you guys can go and click on the notify me. But let's do a live on Wednesday. Let's have you guys there. Let's talk it out, because by then we'll have more news out. Hopefully we'll figure out what it is going on with Marcus Rashford, with Bruno Fernandes. Is he going to Saudi? Is he not? Are we getting the money? Which, by the way, I think if he goes to Saudi, we could probably get 150 million euros out of them. That doesn't mean I want him sold, guys. That's just the reality of the situation. I know we need a big rebuild. We got a lot of people to buy. We got a lot of things to do, and I don't think we're going to be getting any money for Marcus from the way things are playing out. I think Barcelona is going to try to cheapskate us and try to take advantage of the fact that we're kind of desperate to get rid of him and just getting his wages off the books. They might be like, well, we'll get his wages off the books, but we're not going to buy him until we see if he's any good or not for a season. That's going to be absolutely devastating for our summer transfer plans, and I don't know where that's going to go. Anyway, I'm not about to go on and on about this because I can sit here and talk for another 40 minutes. I'm going to send it back to the other video. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you're here, hit the like button. If you haven't yet, go to X. If you have an X account, go to X and follow me on X, man. I put it up there on these videos every single time. It's Man United FC Man, MANUTD FC Man on X. It's right down there. Go and follow me. And let's kick it back to the old me, yesterday me, finishing this video off. And also, if you're new, watch this video that's on the screen right now about Ruben Amorim tactics. If you haven't seen it before, I think you'll enjoy it. I talk about his tactics in ways that I've never seen talked about in any other YouTube videos. Guys, thank you so much. I'll be back soon. See ya.